everybody and welcome to this video in which we are going to be going over how we can use matplotlib to plot out a scatter graph based on real world data. So we've done a video already in this at looking at how we can use matplotlib to do scatter graphs with some dummy data that we did, and that's pretty useful to go and check that one out. But this is kind of like, okay, let's put stuff together now. So hopefully you've been watching videos and reading technique cards on pandas, Python library, pandas, and matplotlib, and scatter graphs and bar charts and all that. This is kind of like pulling stuff together and saying, okay, why are we doing this? Well, it's for real world projects, right? All of this is about real world projects, looking at data about the world, digital change makers, trying to make things better in the world. But of course, data is important because then it shows us what we could do better, or what needs to change, or what could change. And of course, having a graph, so with matplotlib, having a visual representation data is really powerful and is very persuasive. So then when we're putting it into our digital change maker projects, and we're trying to persuade people of our points and get them to see our point of view, a graph is a really useful way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to kind of assume that you know what I'm talking about, and if not, don't worry about it. Go check out the other technique cards and videos. I'm going to kind of assume you've been following along. If not, don't worry. Just go check it out, practice more, and then come back to this one. But so let's get on to it. So here, I've got this CSV file here, and it's the one whereby we've got the country name, the continent the country is in, gross domestic product, so GDP per capita, and Gini. GDP per capita is kind of how rich the country is. You could think of it per person. So if you get all of the wealth of the country and then divide it down by each person in the country, this is kind of the wealth of each person. Bigger numbers, richer country, smaller numbers, poorer country. You can kind of see it that way. I know that's a simplification, but we're keeping it simple. So how rich the country is. Bigger numbers richer, smaller numbers less rich. Gini, this number is interesting. This is a number which lets us know how equal or unequal the country is when it comes to wealth. So if you've got a really high number, if you've got a high Gini number, like some of the countries down there, right? So 50 odd, 60. If you've got a high number on Gini, it's unequal. The country is really quite unequal. So that means you go to that country and you're going to see some really, really rich people with loads of nice things. And then, on the same street in the same country, you're going to have some dirt poor people who've got nothing. So a really unequal society in that country, very rich people and very poor people in the country, if there's a high Gini. If there's a low Gini, so like here, in these kind of countries, it's going to be a lot more equal. People have got a more equal amount of money or lack of money, right? They're more equal, right? They're more equal in how much they have, I guess. And that's a smaller Gini, okay? So let's imagine I want to find out if there's any kind of pattern, any kind of correlation between how rich a country is and how equal or unequal the wealth is distributed. Now you might have some ideas on that, but hey, let's use data to answer that question. So let's get to it. We're going to import pandas as PD, and we're going to import matplotlib, there it is, and then we're going to drill into pyplot as plt, right, like that. Okay, now I'm going to create a data frame, so data frame, pandas data frame, and I'm going to be using read CSV method, and it's going to be wealth .csv, which is the one you can see right there in the same directory. Okay, now if we think about what we're doing with this, we're going to make a scatter graph, and it's going to have data for X and data for Y. X left, right, Y up and down. X I think will be GDP per capita, if you look at it here. So the column there, GDP per capita, that column is going to be our X data. So let's come back over there. I'm just going to call it X. So the variable is going to be called X, and we want a series. So pandas series, and we're going to go from the data frame, and we're going to create a series based off, what is it, GDP per capita, like that. So that's going to give us a series back, and that's going to be stored into the variable X, and that's going to be plotted out on the X axis. And then we want Y, and that's going to be a series from the data frame, and that was Gini, right, like that. Okay, so we get the two series there. And then we're going to use, this is where we go into matplotlib, and we're going to use scatter method, and it's going to be x, comma, I don't like all that junk there, sorry, y, like that. And we could also put on an x label, like that, and that's going to be, what was it, GDP, and that's in US dollars, like that, per capita, something like that, I think. Yeah, that makes sense. And then we're going to put on a Y label, and that's going to be just Genie, right? Okay, like that. And title, I'm not very good with titles. I'll do my best thinking of my title. GDP compared to Genie, something like that. I know it's not great, but it will do for now. It gives it a title, and then of course we're just going to call the show method, and we're going to show that thing. That's it. Point is, we're using real world data. This is real world data, right, which has been collected from World Bank data sets. This is real world. This is talking about the world we live in, right? And then what we're looking at here is just using this code. It's really powerful and it's really quick. That's why I've been banging on about learning how to use pandas and matplotlib, because these libraries work in collaboration together to do some serious heavy lifting, right? And then to answer questions about the world, and maybe to raise questions about the world as well. Anyway, let's have a look at what we get back from this. So I've got it here, still called that. Let's have a look at what's going on. So interesting. So GDP per capita. So over here we got the poorer countries. And as we go right, it's getting richer and richer and richer still. The wealthiest countries are over here, per capita, remember, per person. And then here we got the Genie. So down here we've got the more equal countries with low Genies. And then more and more unequal. As the Genie increases, it's less and less equal. So very, very rich people, very, very poor people. So if you look at this dot here, remember each dot here, each one of these is a country. Each data point is a country in the world. So this country is the most unequal in terms of wealth distribution in the data set. Actually, as far as I know, in the world, this particular country. Obviously, I don't have every country in my data set, but this one, actually, as far as I know, I did this project before with like every country in the world we got data for, and this was the one that was the most unequal. And then, so that's interesting. Is there a general trend? Coming back to is there a general trend? Yeah, there is. There's a general negative correlation. If you've watched over our work on correlations, it's kind of like that, isn't it? It's your line of best fit would be kind of sliding down that way, isn't it? And what's that telling us about the world? That's telling us as a country gets richer, generally speaking, it gets more equal, right? So as the countries get richer, they get more equal in distributing their wealth to everybody. And as the country's poorer, then it's more unequal, and you're getting that very rich person, very rich family, and very poor person, very poor family, as the country itself gets poorer, which is kind of interesting. And some of you may have thought something different on what you would see, but this is real world data, remember, and you actually get it. You might be thinking, I'll pick the countries specifically to show this. Not really. When I did this with the whole world, you got the same negative correlation, actually, the same pattern. So the next step with this is to say, well, hold on, what's this? You notice that thing there? What is this? What is this country? Look at it. It really doesn't fit the pattern at all, does it? If you're thinking about that pattern of that line of best fit kind of sliding down, that country kind of should be down here, shouldn't it? Right? It's really wealthy. So, and you look at the other wealthy countries, they're all quite equal. The wealthier countries are really quite equal, right? Down here. But this one, it's really quite rich, but it's really unequal. Its inequality is more similar to these poorer countries here. So straight away, that question is, well, which country is that? What's going on there? And what are the reasons for that? And down here, we've got the more equal countries. So you might be saying, so what is it about these countries? Is there a connection here with where they are in the world? Or is it all mixed in? Have we got like Asian, African, European all mixed in and also here? Or are we starting to get a distinction? There's just like a type of continent here and a specific continent here and a continent here. Well, I guess that's the next step, right? That's the next step. And that's saying, how could we, is it possible for us to maybe plot the names of the countries? So it actually tells you that this is Saudi Arabia, or it tells you that this is Germany or Denmark. Could we do that? Could we plot the name of the country as well? Well, yes, we can, and that's where we're going in our next video. But this is just to show you, kind of pulling it all together, why we're learning all this stuff. It's pretty cool, and it's mind-blowing in my opinion, because look at that. It's not much code at all, is it? And yet it's telling some really interesting stories about the world. And of course, this could quite easily be, the data set could be massive, massive. It could be every country in the world. And we could have a lot more data, and it would be just as quick, really, almost as quick, right, to plot out all of those data points. I'm going to cut the video there. Please go and use this in your own digital change making projects or own data handling projects. And in a moment, I'm going to do another video, which is just going to go over that kind of how do we get the names onto it as well. Okay, hope it was of interest. And as always, until next time, take care.